Get ready and get set for retirement with Ready Set, the online source for a direct purchase annuity that can provide guaranteed income for life. Ready Set by Allianz. Online direct purchase annuities are here. Go to readyset.allianzlife.com. Annuities through Ready Set are issued and its guarantees backed by Allianz Life Insurance Company of North America.
Blog Talk Radio.
Man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We attitude, we rooting, and we go into that fight just to land on the line.
Basketball fans, the NBA Playoff Banter Podcast is back. I'm Chris. He's Marshall, or at least he's going to be Marshall. He's not quite on just yet. And we are here to discuss everything that is the NBA playoff season. I'm just going to make sure I got everything going right now. I got a couple of text messages. Okay, I just rebooted the switchboard, so it should be good to go. Anyway, as I mentioned, we're here to talk NBA playoffs, and we have a couple of 2-2 series. We got some sweeps that make no sense, or a sweep, I should say, that makes little to no sense. But like I said, 2-2, I'm not going to say across the board, but we got some playoffs here in the first round. The last maybe decade or so, the first round of the NBA playoffs, and we've talked this a handful of times because we've done this NBA playoff show for several years now. And usually the first round, you look at like a 4-5 series or this series, or somebody got hurt during the year, so that therefore they didn't have as good a seed, and so the matchup in the first round, you're like, wow, okay, this is something, But to be honest with you, a lot of times it's just like, okay, there'll be two series that I'm really pumped about. There might be some tight games, of course, some buzzer beaters and all that good stuff, but it doesn't necessarily equate to a juicy playoff series that I can take a bite in and sink my teeth in. You know what I mean? But this year, man, it's interesting. It really is. Even if you look at, Philly's up 3-1. They're probably going to close it out now that they're back at home, but that was a pretty damn good series. Obviously, getting Embiid back, helps. 2-2 series tied with Milwaukee in Boston. A tad bit of a surprise, but not really, but kind of, right? I know that sounded kind of strange what I just said, but for Boston to do what they're doing, it's pretty impressive without their two top players. Obviously, the Pacers keeping pace with Cleveland, 2-2, and that game was razor sharp. In fact, the last three games have been, down the stretch type games. Even a 2-1 series has some interest with the Minnesota Timberwolves, where if you look at percentage-wise, not my host here, not my co-host Marshall, he actually called for a 6-game series, but if you were going to look at a sweep, this is the one that a lot of people pointed to. Games 1 and Game 3, Minnesota played good enough to win. Obviously, there's a couple whatevers, but like I said, the 4-0 sweep from New Orleans. Even if you pick New Orleans to win, I picked New Orleans to win, sure, the series, but I said in 7 games. You know what I mean? I would have never guessed it would have been a sweep. Never. And, you know, you look at how the Raptors played, the way they closed out game one, right? And then they just kept it going. Put up, 130 points in game two. You're thinking, all right, well, this is going to be like a 4-1 series or something. Yeah, you know, the Wizards will win one when they get back home, but that's a series. That's a series. So, and by the way, if this is your first time listening to the NBA Playoff Banter Podcast, it goes by the name normally of the College Ball Show. We started way back in late August. We call it the College Ball Show because we start with football and then we go to basketball. So it's football from late August all the way to January in the national championship game. Switch focus in January all the way to April for college basketball. And we figure if you like college basketball, you know, especially March Madness, you probably like the NBA playoffs. Maybe you're not the biggest NBA fan per se, but the playoffs just add that intensity. So we'll be here on a weekly basis all the way through the NBA playoffs, through the finals, April, May, and June. Then we have 2 shows left after that. One will be on the NBA draft. And, of course, early July, the NBA free agent period will give us plenty of content for a long, long show there early July. So stay with us all the way through. This podcast can be found under the Rope-A-Dope Radio umbrella podcast, right? That's not the title, umbrella, but under the umbrella. And that can be found right here at blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. We stream the show live in it, archives. It's basically the headquarters for both shows. It's also available on iTunes, a.k.a. Apple Podcasts. Player FM is another great source. Spreaker, SoundCloud. Basically, wherever you like listening to your pods, there's a great chance that we'll be there. So check us out. Also check us out on the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which is available everywhere, including iHeartRadio. So if you're big on iHeartRadio, check out the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast. You got football, you got basketball, you got boxing, you got baseball. You got a little bit of everything. If you do Spreaker, they got a really good app for that too. I'm hearing we might get on Spotify, which would be really cool. I'll keep you posted on that. But head on over to thegruelingtruth.net. That's thegruelingtruth.net. They got a great sponsor over there, mybookie.ag. That's mybookie.ag. Heading over there, read an article, listen to a podcast, and put in a bet at the same site. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Marshall. What's going on, Marshall? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Just 21 days left of teaching kids, and the season is over. So,
but who's counting, right?
yeah. And looks like I'll be moving my talents to a different location. But it looks like I got an interview with for like being like a JV girls basketball coach in high school next year. So, find out more about that. But going from junior high up to being a JV coach would be pretty sweet. So, and the good thing about it is, Chris, is that if you coach girls basketball down in Texas, that relieves you of football duties. And not that I mind coaching football, it's fun, but dude, the time you put in as a coach when you're coaching football down here it's endless. It never stops. So I'll let you know next week. Maybe I'll have a new gig set up. So I got kind of fingers crossed. We'll see how it plays out.
Nice, man, nice. So I went over a couple of the series just vaguely, and
yeah.
I mean, you got 2-2. You got 2-2s kind of a lot of different places. You got a sweep that just stands out as, wait, what happened? And even the Rockets and Timberwolves series is very interesting. Obviously, you're the one who called that a 6 game, so I'll give you credit on that. But that's kind of the one that, you know, I guess you could say percentage-wise, a lot of people said, well, if there's going to be a sweep, that'd probably be the sweep. And obviously Golden State, Spurs, no one really looked at that as a tough series per se. Now the Spurs just based off pride. You know, obviously Popovich, you know, thoughts and prayers go out to the family. You know, losing his wife, that's rough, man. That's really rough. But as far as the series go, pride got them a win, and that'll be short-lived. And tomorrow night it'll be cleared out in Game 5. But as we pass these Game 3s, right, and we get to the Game 5, we all know the Game 3. I mean, even Game 1, but especially Game 3 and Game 5. Obviously Game 7 because that wins you the series. But we know the importance level on Game 3 and Game 5. I actually have some stats on that. I'll maybe breeze by later. Obviously tonight, 2 big games, man. We're sitting at 2-1. The Jazz, after kind of a so-so flat start to the series, has played really well, very well. Ricky Rubio had his triple-double in the last game, which is much better than the first 2, especially the first one. Second one, he played pretty good, much better than the first one, but the third game, he really put it all together. And then, like I said, 2-1 with a game that's going to tip off in probably about a half hour, give or take, for the Timberwolves and the Rockets. But first and foremost, since we're not going to be able to talk about this anymore, any longer, right, because the series is freaking over, which I'm still shocked at, especially how it went down. The first game, Pelicans on the road, 97-95. Okay, that happens. It was a tight game. That can happen. But then it seemed like as the series went on, it just kept extending. Not that they were all blowout games. That last game was very winnable in spots for the Blazers. What the hell happened here, Marshall? In playoff rondo is a real thing, right? We already know, Davis, the brow, is a stud. We already knew that, and the level he's been playing at is just ridiculous. But, Holiday, I mean, this dude, as a two-way player, Holiday has just blown up defensively and offensively, had just a phenomenal game. What in the hell happened in this series, Marshall? Like I said, I'll admit, yeah, sure, I picked them to win in a Game 7, but that has no bearing on the hell happened in this series, man.
I think that the number one best player in the series played like that every night, and the second and third best player in the series really didn't bring their A game. I mean, Portland probably had the best record from the All-Star break on, or very, very close in the NBA. And I mean, you feel like they'd kind of gelled their pieces together. This is a team that has kind of made big change in their roster for the past 3 years. I mean, when they lost my favorite starting 5 in NBA history as a fan, they kind of had to revamp everything from that point on. And then you had people doubting, can McCollum and Lillard play together? And last year wasn't that great of a year. And this year it's like, okay, they got their stuff together. They go on a 13-game run after the All-Star break, and you're like, okay, we'll do Portland. I mean, this is going to be like a cakewalk to the second round. And not that I thought New Orleans was a joke, but I really thought Portland would win the series because they'd been playing so well. But then
in New Orleans, Utah and New Orleans had played. I mean, obviously Utah played the best down the stretch in Philadelphia, but New Orleans really earned their spot too the way they played in the second half.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes, they had. I mean, obviously, I still think they would have made the playoffs with Boogie, and they'd been making progress. But when he did go out, despite how much I love the guy, they did change up their style, and they went from being a dominant team with 2 good posts to a team that is going to literally run faster than anyone you can. And they changed into being the fastest-paced team in the NBA, which it's a completely different swap, but it's also very hard to defend. You do have a guy like Anthony Davis who could be a 1, 2, 3, 4, or a 5. Then you have a guy like Rondo and Holiday who can play lights out in that kind of style. And I just think I think Game 1 might have been a boost they need because this is a team that kind of won a playoff game. A couple of years ago, Anthony Davis took them into the playoffs against my Warriors, and they played great. But there was
You're
that
talking about
crazy
a series. They've won games. They've won playoff games.
What?
They've won a series.
Anthony Davis had it with them, like, of late.
Okay. So you're saying Anthony Davis hadn't won one?
Yeah, in New Orleans, they did not won a playoff game, and they played Golden State tight, but they did get swept. And so I think the momentum of winning a game with that roster was huge. Mirotic, who was on the Bulls, had a little drama there and soap opera stuff with Bobby Portis, and now that dude shaves his beard and he becomes a beast. I just think Portland probably got overwhelmed. I bet going into that series they thought, guys, we've been playing great basketball. We're the better team. And then to lose game one, I think, was kind of the turning point because, Portland's home court advantage is normally really, really good. And they were getting dogged in game one. They made it come back. And they actually, I remember watching that game, they actually came back and should have won. There was a handful of shots for Lillard and McCollum where in the fourth quarter at home, they normally always make them. And they had a chance to take the lead, and they kept missing it. And New Orleans got done with game one. And then Anthony Davis is like, oh, we won the first game? Well, heck, let's just do it again. And I don't think that Portland ever found a reliable third player. And just I think things rolled out of control.
In the first two games, let's be honest, the two studs didn't play that well either. Lillard got outplayed massively by Holiday.
Yeah, and his numbers from three-point land weren't awful, but they weren't great, and he didn't kind of take a game over like he can. And that's why I was saying I was kind of surprised in the first game about how it wasn't his time in the fourth quarter. Because him and McCollum had shots that could have won them the game, but they didn't. And then even watching the game down the stretch of would have been game three, there was no New Orleans offense was just rolling. There was no stopping it. The momentum and confidence they had just wasn't slowing down. And some of those defensive plays made by Holiday to wrap it up, Chris, were just phenomenal. The blocks, the defense, the play. That dude basically outplayed McCollum and Lillard for the series, and no one expected that to happen. So, and who knows how right my point is, but I really thought that game one was a huge boost because I don't think they expected to win game one. And to be up 15 in the second half and then let them come back and then you still pull it off, it's like, damn, we got a shot here. And just going home, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but if you win the first two games on the road, the odds of you winning the series got to be greatly increased. Because the theory of a series doesn't start till one team wins on the road. Well, hell, you're kind of playing with house's money, Chris, when you win the first two on the road, and you get to go home to home cooking.
Yeah, definitely. It's not in the bank, but it might as well be. You might as well just start writing your checks because they're gonna cash. And what do you do if you're Portland now? You, like you said, you defensively built your team stronger. This is something that you talked about a lot, we talked about it a lot, and you also said that, a lot of people said that having those two as your top two players, neither guy really defends that well. Lillard's kind of more all-purpose. I'd say sometimes, the other star kind of fades as far as all-purposely. He can score.
Sure.
He kind of does the Andrew Wiggins sometimes where you're like, dog, you got 2 rebounds and no assist in that game? You played 38 minutes. How did you do that? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
That type of shit. So what do they do? I haven't listened to this podcast yet. And it's no rush, obviously, but the podcast title is basically Rebuilding. It's from The Ringer, the future for big man and rebuilding the Blazers. What do you do? You just got swept in one of your best seasons in a while. What do you do? Do you? I don't know, man. I know that you respect the coach, and this is a team that you followed as a secondary second-tier team that you follow and enjoy, and they're very entertaining over the years, but damn, they got swept when push comes to shove. They got swept,
I think normally in basketball, when we think of rebuild, we think of kind of blowing a team up, and I don't quite think you're there because their record doesn't necessarily require that. But on the other hand, can you really tell the fan base, hey, we're bringing out the same 12 guys next year and come support us and not give us any grief over the offseason? Because, I mean, getting rid of a McCollum and Lillard, those guys are two of the top 15 guards in basketball. So those guys alone are great pieces you really don't want to get rid of if you're a GM or a coach. And on the other hand, are we really going to try to revamp our entire benching? I don't know. I think normally, Chris, the answer is easy to where, okay, we need to rebuild. Let's get some high draft picks. Let's have a year where we suck, and we'll get a stud out of college. We'll add some veterans around him. We'll make some smart choices, and there we go. But they're not in that phase. They're in a phase of, we just had a badass record. We have two potential all-star players, and we have a bunch of role players, and they all kind of fell apart. What do we do now? That's such a tough situation. I guess that's why those guys make the big dollars and we don't. But, man, if you get rid of McCollum or Dame, and Dame would be really tough to sell because that guy's kind of been the person. It was kind of him and Aldridge together as the fan favorites, and Aldridge left. So I don't know how you'd sell to your fan base getting rid of Lillard, which basically means, okay, let's bring someone in, get rid of McCollum if you want to switch things up. But you better go for a big. I don't know. They're in a tough spot, Chris. And I wish them well. I don't think you can tell the fan base, hey, we're going to add a bunch more role players because they've been changing role players last 4 years in a row, and they finally find something, and then those role players fall down in the playoffs. That's a damn tough spot for a team to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I don't know. And I've also heard, some of these teams that closed hot, it does make you kind of scratch your head minorly and go, well, was it I'm not going to be such a dick and say, oh, it's just because Jimmy Butler got hurt. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got the third spot, that type of thing. Although I did say that before. But sometimes these closes can mean something and they keep it going. Other times you go, wow. Like you go back and look at who they were playing and did they kind of rub up it. And this is also something you talked about that can help or hurt teams as far as how many tank teams did they play and whatnot. You know what I mean? So, when you win 11 and 13 in a row, it doesn't matter who you're playing at that point. But as far as like the 20 and 25 last games without the streak going on and whatnot. But yeah, it's a great example of once you get in the playoffs, the game changes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you kind of forget about that, and it kind of stays the same or increases in other ways, but it does change. And things just happen. Like for instance, real quick, Golden State, San Antonio. Golden State's gonna finish it off in Game 5, right? Are you pretty confident that that's gonna happen?
Yeah. It's sad to hear about Popovich. I thought they might actually take both just from that whole situation. But, I'd assume my Golden State Warriors close out at 5 at home. And I saw Curry had his first, soft practice yesterday. So we'll see how that recovery goes. Because without him, New Orleans, they're going to be ready to roll.
Yeah, no kidding. That is true, dude. And it's not like they got a ton of guys. Who does have a lot of guys that could even mess with the big guy there? But just to kind of go off that theme of strange stuff happens or certain things tighten up, half court becomes, more of a commodity. It's a different ball game in the playoffs, as we know. And
yes,
isn't that ironic, Marshall, that Wiggins has been the most consistent Timberwolf and by far the most consistent Big Three, and Towns, I just can't believe the numbers with Towns. But even Jimmy in those first two games, you could see Jimmy came out and put an end to that real quick and real early in that first quarter, Game 3. But it's kind of funny how, and don't get me wrong, there is plenty to criticize at times when it comes to to Wiggins. There are some times where you're like, dude, we just need a little more consistency, man. You need to not do what you're doing. But, man, when you look at the point total and just the shots taken, and there's certain things that really get exploited is what I'm trying to get at. And there's times this year where Wiggins, a lot of people felt, as did I, that they weren't using him properly. And the problem is, you know, you're already going to have a point guard. Then you're going to have Jimmy bring the ball up. There's really not a lot of room anymore for him to have the ball coming up the court. I'm not saying set up the offense, Marshall. I'm just saying having the ball crossing midcourt, then it's a lot more open. You know, you can only do stuff to him, you know, at a distance, and you're not necessarily setting up for him. He just has the ball and he can kind of freestyle, and that's where he's really good as well. But the post, he loves to post up. Well, guess what? So does Jimmy. You know, like, there's a lot of spots, and instead of getting as many times or opportunities in his spots, because he was still getting shots, just not necessarily the shots we were used to taking, we were actually setting him out at the three-point line and say, stand there, dude. Because you know what? In the playoffs, they're going to make you do it. So it's going to look ugly right now, but it's going to pay off at some point. And I'm just kind of trying to give examples of different things that go on in the playoffs, and then things like not being able to play defense on a consistent level come out majorly. Softness, right, comes out majorly. And you know, we could say we want about Thibodeau at times, especially with this offense. I get it, even though we were one of the best offensive teams in the league. And it's funny because now in this series, they still haven't hit their point total, their average point total. Nowhere near it, actually. And they're second or worse out of all 6 teams in field goal, and I think second to worst in three-pointers right now. So our defense have actually turned up a lot more than people want to say. But it's just crazy because looking at that series, Towns in the first couple games, and I liked how Thibodeau said, you know, they're like, hey, what's up, dude? 7 or 9 shots or whatever? Like, yeah, I think he was 3 of 9. Like, well, what's up? Why can't we get him the ball? You know, you got to give him the ball. And he's like, yeah, I hear you. You know, we could get him the ball more, but he's getting doubled, so he has to work for the ball. He has to go get the ball. He has to run down the court and be one of the first guys down there to get in position before they can even set up on you. And I'm just trying to, like I said, give examples of so many times you see something and then you get in the playoffs, you go, yeah, you know what? The first month or 2 of the season, we were screaming at him, but everybody was focused on Wiggins when they should have been focused on this. But then Towns did improve his position on defense and all that throughout the season, hence the All-Star and all that, although obviously it's a voting system. But what are your thoughts on this playoff series, and then we'll get, you know, to the rest of the West, and then obviously lots to talk about in the East. But how do you see Game 4 playing out tonight? And just in general, I mean, they were so close, Marshall, to winning Game 1. You know, on paper, the way they played phenomenally finally, offensively last Game 2 and defense, they kind of comboed that up, but it was a more all-purpose. Literally, fucking Cat didn't even take a shot in the first quarter, dude. It was like, dude, what are you doing, man? But, you know, at least he let it come to him, and he was actually blocking shots and rebounding, and then the game came to him more naturally. But what do you think about this series right now? Obviously, Game 4 tonight at the Target Center. You know Minnesota fans are going to be freaking out because in 2 out of the 3 games, it was competitive. And actually, if you rewind to Game 2, Marshall, at the beginning of that game, because I came off Game 1 going, well, that was our game to steal. You know, we're not going to win Game 2 now. There's no way. They're going to be too offensive. They're not going to miss that many threes and, you know, that type of thing. But that first quarter, Minnesota came out like gangbusters and held them to a low point total, and you thought, oh, here we go. But then something that happened in the season several times throughout the season is they play a phenomenal 32-18 quarter, and then the same thing happens to them in the second quarter. That's exactly what happened.
Sure.
And they ran away with it. But in 2 out of the 3 games, Marshall, they either won like they did, you know, going away in the fourth quarter, but they were right there. I mean, How do you see Game 4 playing out? And just in general, like I mentioned, you should get a little credit for this year because you were one of the – I couldn't really find too many people that put this series to 6 games. What are you seeing so far through the first couple games here, man?
I think that, and I've seen in Game 1 I saw the most intense and close, and I think that the Wolves kind of need to stick to like isolating the ball, so they do need to get down the court fast because I think as a team, Houston plays pretty good solid team defense, but in Game 1 they were making so many great cuts like towards the hoop that I thought the actual offense actually was pretty smooth. They were missing shots that they could have made. And, you know, T can get hot at times too. So the only thing I thought they were doing a little poorly was when they were making their cuts towards the hoop, they were almost going too far under. There was at least 7 or 8 times in Game 1 where they made a great cut to go into the basket, but then pinned themselves so far down that they couldn't go past Clint Capella. So I think isolation-wise, defensively, they kind of put Houston in a tough spot. Because if you do spread the court and give the ball to Butler or Towns, or heck, even Rose looked damn good in Game 1, or Teague, those guys can get isolation buckets. But I think if you let Houston's defense kind of work together as a team and let them get on a fast break, you're in deep trouble. So I think that the isolation offense, I think for the Wolves will be kind of the key I look for. That game starts here in about a half an hour or so. So that'll be a fun game to watch tonight. And I think also what kind of Harden are we going to get? You know, we've talked about Towns. Harden in Game 2 was 2 of 18. I mean,
struggled
you know,
big time.
And then yet they somehow lose that game. It's like, well, hell. But I think if you're a Wolves fan, you got to be optimistic that if we can get Harden to struggle tonight and we're at home, we have a pretty good chance. I mean, I think nerves maybe got to Karl-Anthony Towns to switch back to the Wolves at Game 1. And I think part of it is maybe Clint Capella is a better basketball player than we know. I mean, he's a name that one of my buddies is really high on. And he's a name that if you're an NBA fan, you know him, but if you're not, you probably don't because he's not like an ESPN-covered guy. But he had 20 points in the first half of Game 1. I don't keep talking about that. But, I mean, that dude basically came out and said, I don't care if I'm playing Karl-Anthony Towns or Shaq. I'm going to just, like, do my thing. And he's
been outplaying him, period. It's not even close.
Yeah.
He's been outplaying him majorly.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. You put him out of this system and give him 10 more shots a game, and he may not be as effective, obviously. You know, he might be one of those players, too. You never know. This might be just a perfect place for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of tough to say. But no matter what, it doesn't matter. He's on this team, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, I do think this is a perfect system for him. But yeah, so, I don't know. I think my main points are, you know, Karl-Anthony Towns will feel more comfortable at home. I think you got to keep doing what you're doing against Harden because if you can limit him from being a guy dropping 40, ISO game and drawing crazy fouls, I think that's huge. And how will the resting go for Tibbs? I mean, it's insane that last night LeBron didn't sit out the second half. That's crazy. You should be able to rest the player. And one of the big knocks on Tibbs here has been he doesn't rest his guys enough. Well, I'll kind of be curious to see how will he handle his players because, you know, obviously Wolves kind of view this as a must-win game. Are you really going to keep Butler and Towns out there for almost the whole second half? If so, are they going to get tired? I mean, LeBron, again, is kind of a robot, but I'll be curious to see how he sets up his offense and how he does rotating. Because the Wolves' bench is pretty small, and that's due to his own coaching style. But in the second half, you assume it's going to be a close game because my gut says that, and I think it will be. Will they get tired and break down? Again, you have a guy like Towns who he's a rook, and Chris Paul, Harden, and you know all these guys, a lot of guys in Houston and Teague, like these guys aren't rookies. So maybe the nerves are gone. He's at a must-win game for Game 4, and will they have enough energy in the tank? Because I mean, we mentioned it throughout so many shows this year about how well Teague and Butler and Wiggins and Towns, all these guys played almost 42, 43 minutes. Well,
they didn't play that kind of minutes. They didn't play any 43 and 42 minutes.
Okay.
On average.
But
the starters play the most minutes hands down in the whole league.
No, you're right. Those numbers were too high, but just kind of trying to sell my point. A little exaggeration here, but how we handled people tonight, because besides LeBron, that's always kind of been an interesting point of how coaches handle subbing, and I think that's one thing that no matter what series we talk about, how does a bench rotation work? And I think now that the Wolves are playing their biggest game in over a decade, how will he do it? Because every year, whenever you and I do our NBA Finals preview show, one of our segments we always spend about 10, 12 minutes on is bench rotation. And if you're a Wolves fan tonight, hopefully he can get guys a couple minutes here and there, maybe get yourself a little bit of a lead so you can do that famous, hey, start the fourth quarter with Towns or Butler on the bench, let them rest until the 9-minute timeout, or will they be down, not be able to do that? So those are kind of my X's and O's for the game. And, Chris, I hope you win. I'm so happy for you, and a buddy of mine in one of my group chats, he's from there, and he went to the game. Him and his wife went, and he's been a long-time Bulls fan. So I'm happy they got one. That was a well-deserved win for a fan base that I think has truly deserved that win. And I think they'll get another one tonight. So I'm hoping they can go back, and then that guarantees a Game 6 at home. So I'm feeling good for your Wolves. I hope they get it and just execute properly, let Towns go off, and then we got ourselves a really damn good series.
Well, a couple things. That was their first playoff win since May 29, 2004. And that was actually against the Lakers, Game 5 against the Lakers. I remember that. That was the last one they won. And that's pretty freaking crazy, man. That's a long-ass time to go without a win like that.
Yes.
Bench-wise, I'll tell you what, Derrick Rose off the bench is awesome. Just period.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at, he's outscoring in half the minutes of Towns. He's outscoring him 42-31, which is pretty crazy. And he's been a nice little spark off the bench. That's for damn sure. As far as minutes go, and I wanted to mention earlier, Rondo now has the third most playoff assists of anybody active right now. I wanted to mention that too. I had this little stat there randomly. As far as minutes, though, right now that's a non-issue, Marshall, and here's why. If you look at the minutes played in the first couple of games, it's actually been really low. Wiggins played like 31 minutes in that first game because he got in a little foul problems, which two of the fouls were pretty ridiculous, but, that happens. If you look at the second game, they played, they were getting their ass kicked. So they actually, some of them didn't even play in the fourth quarter, and it's not like they all logged 40-something minutes in this last game. So as far as minutes, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Crawford's been good off the bench. Obviously, Rose has been the guy off the bench. Tyus Jones, we need to see more of him. That would be helpful. But Bielitsa had a good game. I think he had 16 and 8 in one of these games. Otherwise, he's been just okay. It'll be interesting though. It'll be really interesting. Minutes won't be a problem now though. And like I mentioned earlier, Wiggins and Towns is actually, their minutes are down this season if you compare it to the last couple of years. But yeah, it's the starter minutes that they logged the most starter minutes. Basically all Tibbs teams have done that. But you look at the minutes, the highest one was 37 minutes, And like I said, I'm a little old school, but I remember Duncan and KG and Iverson, all these dudes that had these long-ass careers, by the way, Kobe, they played 39 and 40 minutes, like almost a good chunk of their prime career. So it's interesting, though. It is. It's really interesting. And I'm not saying that rest doesn't help, but sometimes you have to be established already to rest people. You can't just act like you can rest people when you're not even have a seed yet, your first playoff seed. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting where he goes from here. But yeah, you're right. This is a big, big game, and it's just nice to have that playoff atmosphere, and it is nice for Wiggins to play, consistent in these 3 games too, because that's been a big, it's been a big issue. That was my last point. You just nailed it for me to the person. I think you got to have Jamal Crawford on the court a little bit more than you maybe would like to. And again, I don't know the Wolf play as much as you do compared to like if you were grading on Golden State with me. But just my outside take is that I think Jamal Crawford and Teague need to have some time together, because that gives you your maybe best overall chance and occasionally playing the 3-game with them. I mean, Wolves are the worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA, and numbers-wise for makes, and then you have a team like Houston that can get super hot. So I think that occasionally putting the threat of Jamal Crawford on there helps space the court for offense, and also gives you another guy that can help hit a 3. I know Crawford's a little bit older and maybe isn't that strong defensively, but I think occasionally rotating him in, and him and Teague, and, mixing in Towns and Butler, I think that puts a 3-point dynamic offense, which can help you at times, because that's something you all struggle with. And hitting threes in the game can be big for momentum. So that was my last little take of use him a little bit if he can get hot from deep, and just kind of use that to your advantage, in my opinion. Now, again, not a huge Wolves fan, but just kind of a perspective, because when they said the numbers of the lack of threes the Wolves hit, I thought they were kind of staggering, especially for how many points y'all score a game. I thought that was. You got to remember, though,
believe,
this year is we put in the most threes in franchise history, too, this year. So that just puts it in perspective. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa,
that's
okay.
Scary, yeah.
We obviously play a different way. But, yeah, that's a good point. And they've been playing Butler at the 4 more, which does exactly what you're talking about, opens up a little bit more for that 3 game. And he's another ball handler that can still get off the dribble and either dish or just get his shot off. He's still fancy with that dribble. That's probably enough on this series. Let's keep it moving here. The other series left here to talk about in the West, and then we'll get to the East, Oklahoma City and Utah. Now, the first game, it was a good game, and then Oklahoma City kind of just opened it up a little bit at the end and won the game, and you're like, man, one of their best players, young player Mitchell, banged up his ankle. Is he okay? Is he not? They put him back in. He played, but you don't really know. You looked at Rubio taking a bunch of shots. You're like, well, they don't necessarily want that per se, especially he was kind of forcing some of them. Rubio bounced back a little bit better in the second, but really in the third, he really came on. But overall, Utah just playing soundly, on both sides of the court. And Paul George went off. I mean, he went, 8 of 11 or 7 of 9? I don't remember how many threes. The guy was going off in game 1. But it seems like they've kind of, especially this last game, they kind of faltered back into their old ways of not playing team ball and depending on certain things and ISOs and one-on-ones, or just not necessarily playing that good, and they got outplayed by Donovan Mitchell, and especially Rubio, who had one of his best games of his career. Bottom line, I mean, really, 26, 11, and 10. It's phenomenal. First triple-double in 17 years for Utah. So that's good to see out of Rubio, especially, man, when I first saw that first game, I was like, oh, no, Rubio, don't do this. Please don't do this. I want to see you actually play what you're capable of. But here we are, game 4. I feel like I'm in between on this one, man. I want to say, they'll win game 4, but it's on the road. Oklahoma, I'm obviously talking about, but it's on the road, and I'm like, my gut feeling is this is going to go 7. But then I go, well, shit, they're at home. Utah is. If they win this game, then they got game 6 at home at least, if not, finish it off in game 5. So it kind of makes me think, okay, dude, that game 2 was huge. And like I said, as we know, the game 3, in fact, I have the stat right here, the game 3 percentages, when you win that game 3, it's 73%. You're going to go on and win that series. So that means something. And right now, they're just kind of like team basketball with guys that can still fill it up. It's not just complete Atlanta, team basketball where you got 10 guys, but none of them are stars or anything like that. They're just getting outplayed, man. And this is a tricky matchup. And I really feel confident that the Jazz are going to win at home, man. Obviously, the Thunder need it really bad so they can bounce back. But beyond game one, the Jazz have just played better overall ball, man. And they really tightened it up in that fourth quarter. And just, 115 to 102. They look so good down the stretch, man.
Yeah, and I actually really like my prediction. This one seems to be stuck in my head. I know I screwed up the New Orleans series. I was like many. But I got Jazz in 6, and I think that's going to play out pretty well. I think they'll win tonight. Westbrook will do something crazy in Game 5 like he can, and then the Jazz wrap it up in 6. They were the more consistent team all year. They were maybe the hottest team down the stretch above Portland. I forgot that. At one point, the Jazz had been 28-5. I mean, that's just utter ridiculousness. I mean, they're a hell of a basketball team who plays better defense. They play better basketball as a team. With Donovan Mitchell dishing the ball to Rubio in that game for a game-winning shot, that's just unselfishness. But in Oklahoma City, if you're drawing up the last play of the game, if Westbrook gets the ball, he ain't passing. I don't care if there's a better shot. He's not a guy that's going to give up a look to help out a teammate. He's going to take it. That's the kind of guy. So I just think you have so many factors that Utah is a better team. And my last point is, Chris, I think they actually have kind of a surprisingly very, very quietly shaky, very incredible home crowd. I know that they've not quite been on the map like they were back in the day with Jordan, but, I mean, it does seem whenever they have been in the playoffs for the past however many years when I've watched basketball more closely, their home playoff is pretty nuts. I mean, that's literally the only team that city has. I guess
they got a good fan base.
Yeah,
they got a great fan base, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they got a professional soccer team, but I mean, just for a main sport, like they love their basketball because that's kind of their go-to. So yeah, I'm thinking a win tonight. Let Westbrook drop 47 in Game 5, and then Jazz will come back and win in 6. You just need better offense, and they never quite found that rhythm. So I'm with you. I'll take Jazz in 6, and I think tonight's I'll say they win by 10. Let's see if I can nail this. Like 107 to 97 Jazz win tonight.
I agree. Not necessarily like the score, but I agree what you're saying. I do think that Russ will pull some shit off at home. And obviously, when you're speaking of Russ, you were talking about the last seconds of the game, not overall, because obviously the guy passes to his teammate.
Yes.
You're talking about the last part of the game. But I agree with you. I think I think they'll close it out in Game 6. I think that is right in tune. Now, we'll start with the series that isn't 2-2, right? Because we might as well. When I saw Game 1, I thought, wow, this series is over. You know what I mean? Like, wow, you don't have Embiid, and you're beating them 130 to 100. Like, wow. And it took a while. He played really well. And then somewhere maybe like for 2.5 quarters they played really well. And you can start to see Philly kind of stretch a little bit. Then they kind of blew it open. And he thought, all right, well, here goes Philly. Because you remember, they've been on that streak, too. They were still on that. I think they got up to 14 or 17. I don't know. It's been so many damn streaks this year, Marshall. It's hard to keep track of them.
Yes.
From like 7 teams. It's like, Jesus Christ. Why couldn't the Timberwolves have an 11-game streak in there someplace? That'd have been nice. I think they got up to 5 as their tops. I think. It may have been 4. But then they bounced back nicely, did the Heat. But then they got Embiid back for Philly. And it showed in Game 3. Big time. And Game 4 was neck and neck, came right down to it. A lot of people think, oh, man, the Heat had their chances. Now it's back to Philly. Game 5, I feel like they're going to close it out. If not, they're winning the series. Where do you stand on this one?
I don't think that they have quite the offensive team that you have in Houston or Golden State. But I think just for running a damn efficient offense, Chris, every time I watch them play, their offense is smooth. Whether it's Simmons, Embiid, Covington, Saric, they just have a creativeness to their offense that it just doesn't – it never looks out of place. It's the complete opposite of Oklahoma City. Or even the chaos of Houston of running down and kind of chucking or letting Harden isolate. I just love their offensive team, man, and I think they do close it out. I think that you have a hell of a coach in Spoelstra, an incredibly gritty team in Miami, which I talked about in my series preview for this one, but they're just smooth, brother. And when you watch them play, there's just a rhythm to the game that I think they make it look like a beautiful game of basketball as it should. So I think they wrap it up. Their offense is too good. I mean, heck, they scored, 124 points in game one without Embiid? I mean, and that home court for game 5, okay, my bad. I think 124. So add 2 more threes. 130, and you're without your star, and you get to go home and close out. Yeah, good luck, Miami. Man, I think they'll make it a game because, again, I guess I'm higher on Spoelstra. Why, I'm not quite sure. But I think they'll make it respectable. But I think they'll pull away in the second half, and they'll probably get up in that 120 range, and it's just going to be a show. They're just so smooth, and imagine if Simmons can learn how to shoot. The dude orchestrates a great offense for a quote-unquote rookie, and you get him beat, and you get those players learning how to play together better. Look out. That's fun. So I'll take Philly winning in 5.
And he will. He'll be better. I mean, there's plenty of players that can't shoot. Braun couldn't shoot. A lot of people couldn't shoot from that three-point range. But like you said, at least he's not just a guy that's going to try to put his head down and score every single time, because that'll get limited after a while. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm right there with you, though. Philly, man, the potential in Philly, dude, like you just said, I mean, it's pretty silly, dude. And they got they're the longest team in the league, Marshall. By far the longest team in the league. They are so long and lanky. Like,
oh, yeah.
Dude, I mean, Embiid alone, and he can hit threes. You know what I mean? Like, we just talked about their point guard. I mean, the 2 freaking Euros, they're freaking long and lanky, and they can hit three. Dude, it's their lineup, man. I really started focusing more on them, like, in the last couple of months, a little bit, And I just kept looking and looking and checking in. And now I'm seeing the role players, and you're like, wow, dude. I wonder how they're going to get Redick, though. I think that was a 1-year, $20 million deal or something like that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they can bring that back, because you're not going to sign him for 4 years at $25 million or something like that. I don't know. Hey, I'll take a shooter. I'll sign him. That'd be nice. But yeah, man, I agree. Anyway, let's keep moving. Let's go with the Celtics and the Bucks. And we're going to save the best for last, and the most intriguing one because of, what it means to the NBA, what it means to LeBron and his legacy and all that stuff. We'll save that to last. And the Pacers have always pushed LeBron teams, dude, period. They just have, for the most part, if you think about it. He's been down 3-2, I think, at least once to them. Different team, though, obviously. But, although it was cool that Milwaukee hit that freaking 3 to force overtime, I really felt like they kind of dropped the ball in a sense. Celtics played really, really good, though. Game 2, I thought they played phenomenal. And it's really telling us even more if we didn't know about Brad Stevens, obviously. You know what I mean? This is impressive what he's doing here. Now, Game 3, the Bucks played their best game. What was it? 116-92. Their defense showed up. They kind of finally lived up to potential. We've talked about getting Parker more in there. He's talked about it too, by the way. He's like, hey, I just want minutes. It's been paying off a little more. And we've also been talking about, just letting the Greek Freak be center and let him have shooters, and scorers around him. I think they've done a little bit more than that. Now, the last game was nip and tuck. And I've heard plenty of people say that, man, Boston could have almost won that game, dude. If you look at the first two games in the series and you line them up with the point guards, Bledsoe averaging 10 points, 4 assists, 36% from the field. Only took 6 threes in 2 games, only hit 2 of them. Comparatively to, the younger Terry Rozier, I believe from Louisville, he's 23 points, 47, hitting half his threes, getting more assists. He's outplaying him is what I'm trying to get at. Where does this series lead, man? Because as we know, Boston has the home court, and this shit ain't easy. I didn't think it'd be easy, but I picked Milwaukee. I think we both pick Milwaukee in this one? I believe so.
Yeah.
What's your feeling here, man? Because like I said, I really feel like the Celtics could have just won that last game on the road, and here they are tomorrow back at home.
I think that I think in NBA playoff series it does come down to who's the best player on the court. I think that becomes a helpful determination, and I think the Milwaukee's got that. I know that a home crowd improves your defensive performance, but I think when it comes to lockdown defense, I think when the Bucks lock down, Boston's going to struggle to score. I mean, it is crazy how things switch so much with home court and away court. Like the numbers that Vegas were saying, and I should have followed through on this. If a team goes down 2-0, like betting them in the first half to win their game 3 at home is just a staggering number. And almost all these series we've broken down today, the teams that would like a Milwaukee or a Washington or an Indiana, or it's crazy how much a home court does help in basketball. But I think from what I saw from games 3 and 4 with Milwaukee, I think they are the better team. And I think if they can find a way to squeak out a game 5 and the Greek Freak can go off and do his thing and Bledsoe doesn't disappear, I think they're able to pull this one off, Chris. I think if you're relying
That's a lot of ifs, Marshall. That's a lot of ifs. No, I'm just kidding. I'm with you, but it is a lot of ifs. You just gave me 3 ifs.
Yeah, it could be a little more convincing, I guess. But, I mean, do you trust Tatum and Brown more for Boston and a more experienced coach, or do you trust the Greek Freak and his boys? I don't know. I think I stuck with. I believe my original pick was Milwaukee. So I sure wrote these down, but I'm gonna stick with it. I think Milwaukee finds a way to win Game 5. I think their defensive intensity carries over to Game 5 because when it comes down to 5, 6, and 7, the crowd does play a matter. But I mean, you're amped up no matter what for Game 5. I mean, it could be in Milwaukee. I know it would help a little bit, but the defensive intensity should be there, and if it's not, then you deserve to lose the game, So I'll take the Bucks in 5. I think they pull it off, and I just think the pressure is maybe a little too high on Jaylen Brown and Tatum from Duke because you're asking basically a second-year, a first-year kid to carry your team, and that's damn hard to do, Chris.
Yeah, it really is, and they're doing their due diligence. They're playing damn good.
Oh yeah.
But you're right. In the long run, it is.
Yes.
It is tough, and I'm with you. I'm sticking with my pick as well. But man, it's been fun, and it to me it reflects on what the Boston Celtics are gonna be. You know what I mean? If they can obviously get a healthy Kyrie back and what's his toes, but yeah, I mean, they're gonna be a team to be reckoned with, man. But the funny part is Philly's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. What about us, though? You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
True.
Very true. The East is starting to mount up, man. The East is starting to mount up, and I love it.
Well, I'll lead into this one because I think this is kind of a fun debate, Chris. We've been talking about who's the best player on the court, and you said we're saving LeBron for last. So that leaves us with Washington and Toronto. I would think, this comes down to opinion. This is definitely an opinionated question. But I think the best player on the court plays for Washington. And I think this series has gotten good because it's getting chippy. It's been nasty. I watched the game majority of these games have all been pretty close. I guess I can't remember exactly off the top of my head if they've all been soon, but it's been some pretty damn good basketball. And
we're obviously talking about Otto Porter Jr. too, right? Just kidding. Best player on the court.
This is a hell of a series. DeRozan was doing all he could last night, but didn't seem to get much help. And John Wall, steps up when Beal fouls out of the game. This one, I hope this one goes 7, because this one just it's been competitive. The teams don't like each other. There's been a good amount of trash talk. It gets a little chippy with fouls. I think that this has been a great series from the start. Much like I complimented your Timberwolves for saying they're not the typical 8 seed, that a team can just kind of walk through. I think you can easily give the same compliment to Washington, who, if you ask 20 people,
they missed John Wall down the stretch.
Yeah, at a sports bar, like, hey, who would you pick between Washington and Toronto? You're probably like, I don't know. Some people might pick the Wizards, some people might pick Toronto, but you're like, oh, they're the 8 and the 1 seed. Oh, well, shit, the 8 seed's got a chance there. I guess I didn't necessarily go into specific details of the first 4 games, but the series is tied. It's going back to Toronto. Washington, I believe, has now won their past 10 home playoff games in a row. That team just has this kind of special buzz when they play there. They enjoy racking up the points, kind of like a Houston or Golden State. They got Beal and Wall and Porter and Oubre. They just kind of have that gritty defensive mentality. And not for maybe Kelly Olynyk's Game 7 28-point performance last year. Who knows how far they could have gone. But this might be the most exciting one for me to watch, just because I think we're going to have 3 more damn good games, Chris, and I think that somehow Washington pulls it off in Game 7. I think that the Toronto choking occurs again, but man, what a fun series! John Wall and Beal battling against DeRozan and Lowry, and kind of who can step their game up the most. I think this one's a damn fun one to watch. It doesn't have the LeBron storyline, which you make, and that's a relevant point, but just for pure basketball, not going to be locked down. There's going to be defense, but more of an offensive-based showdown. This one's been fun, man, and I would expect a few more technicals before the series is over as well.
Yeah, we'll have to wait till Wednesday. They played last night, 2-2, and now the pressure's back on that home court for Toronto. The way those first 2 games went, Marshall, I did like how they kept spreading the ball and whatnot in the fourth quarter, and they didn't, rely solely on, DeRozan and Lowry to ISO like they have so many years in the past. And we obviously know they've improved their defense this year. They're passing in, of course. They're, DeRozan with the threes. But I'm sticking with my pick with Toronto, sure, but I'm not confident now. I really thought that they'd win one of those games. I really did, on the road. And then that way there wouldn't be much pressure on that Wednesday game, but I don't care how many people are standing outside that damn building. They're gonna be freaking nervous, dude. And it's gonna be in the air. It's just gonna be in the air. You cut right through it. And yeah, man, I agree. I think this is gonna be fun down the stretch. And I guess you could say the only complaint is they haven't really come down to the wire a bunch. This last one basically did. But the other 3 hadn't, So, but with that said, that kind of lends itself to 2 out of these next 3 will probably come down to the last couple minutes, if not, as we hope, the last minute. Now, last but certainly not, I don't know what I was saying. Last but not least. Oh, there we go. Boy, I lost it there. Cleveland Pacers. The Game 1 was like, what? Did we just have? This actually kind of has been a series. At least 2 out of the 3 games anyway, or 2 out of the 4 games. It's been like a flashback to like late 90s, early 2000s, because you got some team the Cavs, only put up 80 points. And the Game 3 was 92-90. I mean, it looks like something out of early 2000s where they're just grinding it out. And it's just funny like that. Neither of these teams are known for any kind of defense, that's for damn sure. But I gotta say, they've been doing it. And speaking of some rough play and some animosity, this series has that too, right, Marshall? Stevenson comes off the bench, but he might as well start. He put old boy in the headlock the other night, or last night, was it? 2 nights ago, last night? 2 nights ago.
Yeah, kind of wrestling for that jump ball, yeah.
Well, he had the ball, but then he's like, well, we're coming down with you too. When you see the freeze frame, you're like, clearly he did that. It was pretty funny. And then Green like, okay, I'm going to turn you around. And then they started getting kind of pissed at each other on the floor. That was pretty funny. And just a lot of he did it, what the hell, why didn't you see that? But then they do the same thing on the next play. Like, a lot of rough stuff here. I still feel like the Cavs are going to win. That is the thing. They do have the home court. They play on Wednesday as well. 2 big freaking home court games on Wednesday for the East, man. Do you think the Pacers are going to get it done? Or do you still feel kind of confident in this one as far as Cleveland they'll find a way? It won't be pretty, but they're going to find a way.
I think LeBron had to literally be hoping that they could get through this easier, you know. But I think the fact that they have not shows that this has to be, again, one of his weaker supporting casts. And this is probably nothing, but I was honestly kind of shocked because there was a play last night where Oladipo was dribbling, and he literally kind of made LeBron just like lose a step and fall back, and I don't know if I've ever seen that. I know it's something small, but in LeBron's mind, he's got to be like, guys, I seriously can't get enough freaking support to take care of Indiana. Like, how much do I got to do? And I mean, he's gone 7 years in a row, but when Oladipo makes you lose a step, and LeBron, that just doesn't happen to him, in my head, I'm like, okay, the guy isn't quite Superman. He's maybe lost like one part of his cape, and he's still like 98% crazy. But I just think he's got to be like worn out. Like, come on now. But who is the media said is literally who has tried to step up and help him? I mean, is Hood or there's not really names worth mentioning because when it came down to it last night, I guess Kroger did him a favor. Kroger stepped up and helped him, and he made a couple of shots and they kind of wrapped up together. But I just think he's got to be a little worn out because, man, I think you and I both picked five games for Cleveland. That pick was, quite poorly wrong. It's guaranteed 6.
Are you sure you didn't say sweep?
No, actually, I did say sweep because I thought this. No, I remember my exact quote now. I said this Indiana team is worse than last year's, and last year's played them close. Yeah, no, you're right. Yep, so I definitely botched this one, but I think when it comes down to it, he will put the full cape back on and step up when he has to, but I don't think they really want to exude that much energy. But I think this does go to show that, man, this team is when Bogdan Bogdanović is dropping 30 on you and you're blowing a 17-point lead in a game and you lose. And I mean, and LeBron's he was passing the ball last night trying to be a teammate. He should not have to go to isolation LeBron crazy mode for a game. So I just think this truly shows the issues that Cleveland has to deal with. Now, to compliment Indiana and then toss it back to you, brother, when I did watch them play this year, mainly at the start of the year, more so than at the end of the year, just for how my, viewing habits went, I do think they're a pretty well-structured team. This is a team that you could argue overachieved in the NBA more than anyone. Paul George left town, and people are like, oh, dude, you're a garbage team. You're not going to make the playoffs. You have a couple of people. Maybe Oladipo can turn into a stud, and that's it. And the that's it part has transcended into, dude, you had a phenomenal year for what was expected of you. You over-exceed your win expectation. You've managed to beat LeBron 2 games in a row. You have a coach that, again, won't win Coach of the Year, but should at least be mentioned. I mean, for all they've done. I mean, Victor Oladipo's had
and
a
now
great
you got
season.
your star. Yeah, I mean, this guy, two-way star.
Now, unfortunately, he had a pretty rough night last night. He could. I mean, if he plays a little better, they probably win the darn game. I think at one point he was like 5 of 40.
Right.
But so I think compliments to them. It's a sign they're going in the right direction. They have. I would not say their offense is as fluid, as enjoyable to watch as Philly, but I do think that when you watch them play, they have one of the more smoother transition offenses. They always seem to be in motion, doing something they should. They're definitely not a fast-paced team, but they run a beautiful half-court offense, and I like that about them. So I think they do find a way to win one more game, Chris, but sadly you got to win 2 more. I think they'll win Game 6, but I think LeBron, make sure it doesn't happen, and I think they find a way to get it done. But man, that's just it's a scary sign if you're a Cavs fan. And I know we guys talk about they'll turn the switch on when they have to. Well, this is normally a series where they don't even have to turn a switch on. Maybe you lose one, but the rest are like 10 to 15-point wins, and we haven't really seen that from Cleveland. They've been blowing double-digit leads in games and making it close, and you're just thinking.
Yeah, when they win. Even when they win, you're like, but dude, you're up 17 in the middle of the third, dude. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And what's that bode
I
for future games here, for future series this year for Bronny? I mean, we talk about being worn out. I mean, shit, dude, if he's got to let out playoff Braun, this early, yeah, dude, he's going to be spent.
Exactly. I mean, in Game 2, I believe they won by 3 or 4, and last night they won by 4. So your 2 win tallies haven't even led to double digits in points and advances. So, that's tough. But I mean, Larry Nance Jr., J.R. Smith, and Kroger. I mean, yeah, man, it just compliments. It's a compliment to how great of a player he is if he can continuously get this stuff done. And I do expect to see playoff LeBron come Game 5 because he does not want to lose that and have to really step up his game for 6 and 7. So.
Yeah, I mean, 46 minutes last night. He didn't hit a 3. That was the only thing wrong with this game. Other than that, he played a damn good game. 46 minutes, though. Love really isn't doing much beyond rebounding this of late. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you shape it with 2 stars and then a bunch of role players, that other star, one has to step up. And to win it, nobody thinks Cleveland's going to win it all. We know that. But usually if you got the 2-star thing, they got to be like top 5, top 8, both of them. You know what I mean? Like Shaq and Kobe or Pippen and Joe. You got to have 2 elite players, and then you can fill in with solid role players around them. That has worked in the past, no doubt. But that's not going on right now because Love's not pulling his weight, and a lot of these other guys aren't either. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to win, but, man, it is going to be a struggle. No doubt about it. It's not – yeah, it's I mean, if he gets to the East this time.
Hello? Well, hopefully Chris come back. It sounded like his phone just like all of a sudden skipped out there. So if you get back, Chris, let me know. Or maybe you can call back in. But yeah, I think LeBron in the East. Again, for all the power they're having to put forth and blowing these multiple double-digit game leads, that's a scary sign for Cleveland. But I mean, they re-switched their roster or they changed their roster 3 times this year. Their coach had to take a break off. I mean, it's not quite been as smooth as other prior years for Cleveland, and I think you're seeing a reflect of that, which is probably another reason why LeBron is not going to be there next year, whether it's in Philadelphia, Houston. I still think he might go to L.A., one of the L.A.s. I think we're going to see a completely different Houston Cavaliers team next year, and it's probably going to be a little bit of a rough time for those teams after LeBron chooses to leave. But are you back, Chris? All right, well, it looks like by chance his phone might have lost signal. He does live near an airport, and I know occasionally crazy stuff like that does happen. But hopefully you're hearing this. we'll be back again soon. These series are getting close to wrapping up, or should be wrapped up pretty soon. Hopefully we can get a couple of Game 7s. I know when we did a podcast, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we had a 3 Game 7s.
Hey, Marshall, hold up.
Hold
up, Marshall.
Okay.
Hold up.
Good to hear you. Good to hear you.
I dropped.
That's what it sounded like.
Could you just back it up a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
I dropped.
Yeah.
I didn't hear any of that. I don't know if you're talking to me or just talking in general. So you could just kind of, if it's not addressed or any kind of question to me, you can just keep going, whatever.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying about, if you're a Cleveland fan, it's just time to just get a little scared. But this is a team, to kind of wrap up my Cleveland talk, that, redressed their whole roster almost 3 times this year. They had what they started with this year, and then it switched, and then it switched again. And then you had your head coach had to take a break for a little while. I mean, it's just been kind of a weird series. It's been kind of a weird season, which now led to a weird series for them, of just never quite being fluid. That nothing was ever quite on the right page. And, and I think that's going to be a reason as to why LeBron will probably not be back there next year. It's just, the season's kind of been a little bit of a mess. And I mean, if they go to the finals again, my God, that's just, again, a compliment to him. But for Indiana,
well, all of it won't matter because he's coming to the Wolves next year, and it's all good, no biggie.
I think if you're Indiana, do what you can for Game 5, but man, play lights out and just try to force a Game 7. I mean, if you're a Pacers fan,
this is your chance, Cleveland. This is your chance to get Andrew Wiggins back. Let's swap. Let's go head up. Okay, we can't go head up, but LeBron, Wiggins, and take whatever the fuck you want beyond Jimmy Butler and Towns. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. Let me
now
ask
that
you one
would scare
question
you.
for fun.
That would scare you as a Golden State fan if we got Braun on the squad. You would perk up a little bit, like, oh shit.
Oh yeah.
We got problems.
That would, yes. Of the higher seeds remaining, so of the seeds that are not, the favorite to win in Vegas, who do you think has the best chance of winning their series for a higher seed, for kind of like a fun? I normally always ask you a college football question on our show, so let me ask you an NBA playoff one. Who of the top underdogs remaining, who do you think has the best chance of winning the series? And I guess I won't let you say Utah.
That's a great
both
question.
picked them to win.
What's that? I didn't hear the last part.
And I'm going to cancel Utah from your pick list because I think we both picked them, and we both think they're probably a better team. Yep. So that's not really a going out on a limb choice. But besides Utah, who do you like winning, brother?
Well, in my heart, I would like the Timberwolves to win, but I don't like them to win, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to go.
Sure.
I'm going to go freaking Washington, dude. Either Washington or Boston, man. Actually, they're not the higher seed, so what am I talking about? I even though I'm sticking to my guns on my pick, when I look at it, yeah, dude, it's like I kind of feel like Washington, man. I kind of feel like Washington.
And that's the same thing that came to my mind too when I asked the question. Like, it's got to be Washington, doesn't it? It's the 8th seed, but it's like that Toronto. I think you nailed it, Chris. It is going to be. You're going to be literally walking on pins and needles. Once that ball is tipped, every Raptors fan is like, oh my God, here we go again. If we lose the Game 5 tonight, there's no way we're going to win in DC. What the heck's going on?
It's like every conference final or conference championship game for the Vikings. You're just like, oh boy, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, they're kicking the ball off.
Yep.
Oh shit, I'm scared.
I know,
that's just it's pins and needles, like you said. It's a weird feeling, and until you go through it or see it firsthand, you can't really. And we're not talking about some overmatched thing where you could see, okay, they're just falling over, dude. We're talking about they should win, but they're not gonna. Like, man, I've seen this feel before. I feel it as a Minnesota fan beyond the Twins for years and years and years. That's the mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it'd have to be Washington.
Well, and I guess my last point, and I'll give you one that'll get us out of here, is I'm excited tonight to watch Donovan Mitchell. The praise and compliments this man's been given this year, I think, have been over the top, but also big, but over the top, but due to compliments of how damn good the kid is. Because he is in Utah. They don't get on ESPN as much as maybe they should. So for all I've heard and what he did in the regular season and how he's been doing in the postseason, I'm excited to watch him play tonight because I've not seen maybe as much of him as I should have. So I'm excited to see the showcase talent this kid has because he kind of is becoming the go-to shot taker on that team. In these games, that's a team that has quite a few veterans, that has a coach that's been there for a while, that is kind of a defensive-based team. I just think that this kid is doing about all he can. So if you're able to watch the game tonight, watch and check them out, or try to see them in this playoff series if you're listening to our podcast and happen to catch their game 5 or whatever. But this is an incredibly talented kid who a lot of couple people thought he'd be asleep in the draft, and now the dude's turned out to be turn into a pretty damn, potential all-star maybe down the road. But I'm just looking forward to seeing him play tonight, Chris, because that's something I've missed, and I kind of hate missing out on watching a talented kid that everyone's given confidence to all year. So I kind of want to see what he does. I hope he doesn't. I hope I don't jinx him. I hope he doesn't go 2 of 13 tonight. So then on our next podcast, I guess he ain't that good or anything crap like that. But I'm excited to see Donovan Mitchell. Any last note you got? I mean, I know obviously you're going to be cheering your ass off for your Timberwolves to win tonight. That's a given. But besides that?
Well, I did get a text message randomly saying that Towns got 2 fouls right in the beginning of the game. So that's not good. Come on, Luol Deng. Or not Luol Deng. I just called him Georgie Deng. We've been needing more Gorgie anyway. We've been needing more Gorgie. So we didn't necessarily need more of him, but we need him to show up. So maybe he'll, spark us a little bit, and Towns can come back in and spark. But yeah, that's about it, man. We'll definitely be back. Could be 5 days, could be 7 days. We kind of play out how these series go, and just kind of, especially with our schedules, we try to match a day that works and whatnot. So we'll definitely be back probably for sure within 7 days. Could be a little earlier. We'll see. But yeah, that's all I got, sir.
Yeah, well, and like I was saying, when you dipped out, and even if it is a 30-minute show, if we can get 2 Game 7s, I know we've done that in the past, for just breaking down a Game 7 is kind of fun. So maybe you'll hear from Chris and I, in 4 or 5 days. But if let's say Washington goes to 7 and so does Boston, Milwaukee, we might just hop on here for a quick one just to break it down, because clearly that means 9 out of 10 times Game 6 was probably pretty sweet, or there's some storyline building, or the hype of Game 7. That's always fun to talk about. So if some series go to 7, which in the East I hope they do, expect to hear from us hopefully sooner. And if LeBron goes to 7 this year, he might just be picking free agents up off the street that want to join the team and getting rid of some other people. I don't know. But until then, and all that craziness ensues, keep enjoying the playoffs, man. For the first year around, we're getting spoiled, and the East has definitely brought it. And sadly, I guess the series is over for New Orleans and Portland. But damn, you got to compliment a series where a team that not many people thought would sweep did it. So it's short now, but that's still a hell of a good watch. So we'll be back soon. I'm hoping Curry gets healed up here. They say he's practicing now, so I need my leader back. Until then, enjoy your week. Hopefully everything goes well. And thanks for always listening. We love doing this podcast. It's playoff time of the year, and it can't get much better. Have a good night.
Go T-Wolves.
Peace. Go Wolves. Go Wolves. Go. We're out. Bye.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.